Hi, I'm James J. Traitz, author of the book, Don't Stop Your Mind. And with me is Dr. James J. Hurtak and Dr. Desiree Hurtak. Dr. James Hurtak is the author of the book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch, which I'm holding up. And Dr. Jim Hurtak and Dr. Desiree Hurtak are the co-authors of their latest book, The Overself Awakening. JJ, I'd like you to talk a little bit about what happened when you spoke to the scientists in Russia and in China and some of these other places.
I've been privileged to speak with some of the foremost experts in the Russian space program. In fact, I was working with the late Russian cosmonaut Pavel Popovich, who had the second longest record of endurance in outer space, and his wife Marina Popovich, who was the great female Soviet test pilot. In Russia, when their space probe to the planet Mars, Phobos 2, disappeared under unusual circumstances. Fortunately, NASA, through its deep space tracking program, was working with Russia at the time and was able to obtain several film clips of an unusual elongated vehicle that appeared as the Russian probe was going into insertion around the Martian planetary system. Their private feeling at the time, that was shared by a handful of Russian specialists, is that their probe was being intercepted by some type of extraterrestrial technology. There was no other question about it. It was something that was very clear. On that level of scientific investigation and discourse, I also have had the privilege of working with Brazilian and Mexican experts on the highest level who acknowledge the fact that it appears that off-Earth technology and intelligence is aware that we are reaching a danger point in the use of nuclear energy, in the build-up of what is called military systems in outer space that will lead not only to the militarization of outer space, but possibly the death of humanity on Mother Earth. And that is the story behind the story of why there are so many unusual space objects appearing over military launch sites, over space objects of different countries, even in the backyard of people who have absolutely no connections with higher levels of government, telling them through a higher type of consciousness dialogue that we as the humans must wake up and smell the coffee. We're not alone in the universe. We have responsibility not only to planetary humanity, but our role as potential cosmic citizens.
Right. So since the 60s, there were numerous unidentified flying objects that actually look like flying saucers, spaceships, that appeared over military areas, specifically those that had nuclear weapons. And what was interesting is as they flew in, because they didn't have to go through the gates, the nuclear missiles in the silos underground, which had no ability to be turned off from a above ground level, went neutral. And this happened in many cases,
including declassified CI reports for events in 1975.
And yes, and so some of these have been now declassified so people can read about it. But what's interesting is they are here in a certain sense to help us, to teach us, to show us. And they are very concerned about the use of nuclear energy technologies in many places, especially going into space. And we do use nuclear fuel sometimes in our rockets.
So to answer your question, which is a good question, there are those forms of cosmic intelligence that appear to be shepherding us or guiding us into the uses of science, philosophy, sociology, from a productive side of the role that we can play as futurists in outer space. There are those forms of intelligence, again, that you have illustrated, that seem to be taking certain forms of life on this planet, man and animal alike, for medical experiments, for situations that are not, shall we say, respecting our free will. So we have to use a careful selective factor in who we work with, and this is why, in my opinion, it's taken government so long to reach the point of disclosure, because there are many forms appearing on our block, in our neighborhood, of higher awareness. And this is the reason we've written this book called Overself Awakening. Namely, we must consciously evolve a higher mind, a higher spirit, of understanding if we are going to make contact with the minds of those behind the machines, or the phenomena of space contact.